When was the last time you had a hard day and your first instinct wasn't to fix yourself? Not to journal about what lesson it was teaching you, not to figure out what you attracted or raise your vibration or repeat an affirmation. Just let it be hard without making it mean something about who you are. Most of us in the spiritual and healing space have been trained to do the opposite. We've been taught that if life is painful, we must be doing something wrong, that suffering is a sign of low vibration, wrong thinking, misalignment. And if you already live with anxiety, the way I have since I was a teenager, that message doesn't heal you, it breaks you a second time. So today I want to talk about spiritual bypassing, what it actually is, why it's making your anxiety worse, and what I've learned from years of living with a mental illness about what real healing looks like when you stop performing it. So, hi, if you've not seen me before, I am Mercedes and I'm a nervous system coach, yoga teacher, breathwork facilitator, lots of different things. And I have had anxiety for near on 30 years in one form or another. And at points I've had depression and been hospitalised. At one point I was hospitalised for an overdose. But none of it was caused by not thinking positively enough. And I think it's really important to say. So I've been inside this kind of spiritual and healing world for a long time. I first trained as a hypnotherapist back in 2006, so 20 years ago now. And I've tried everything. So the affirmations, manifestation, good vibes only, all of it. And I don't actually teach, it's not how I teach. I teach from active recovery, not from the idea that I've fixed myself and I've arrived and I'm showing you how to fix yourself, because I live with anxiety and I've learned how to live a positive life with something like that. And it's about how we change the way we view things. So it's not about being this perfect person, but it's about how we can build more resilience around ourselves. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what spiritual bypassing is, how it specifically makes anxiety worse, and what actually helps when you ditch the spiritual guilt. And this isn't about throwing out your spiritual practice, it's about making sure that practice isn't quietly adding to your suffering. So what we're going to cover in the video today is what spiritual bypassing is and where it comes from, how it makes anxiety worse, and the second dart, we're going to talk a bit about that. The stuff the self-help world leaves out about hardship, the actual work, what actually works, so the messy reality of real healing, and how to fire the spiritual judge in your head. So, what is spiritual bypassing? And it was a term that was originally coined by psychologist John Welwood. And it's the idea of using spiritual ideas to avoid real messy human experience. And the modern self-help version is your external reality is a direct mirror of your internal state. So if life is hard, you must be doing something wrong internally. And that kind of gets you into a bit of a logic trap, because if I'm the one with the divine, I should be in constant bliss. And if I'm not, I'm failing. And that kind of, you see that coming a lot when people start talking about, setting civic, like aligning with the divine and connecting with the universe and, attracting your God consciousness, which are all great ideas, but they're very esoteric and they're very hard to kind of live. And you see it everywhere on Instagram, TikTok, the whole manifestation culture, and we're only allowed to be high vibe and this is how it's supposed to work. And I've brought into that as well. And I've tried it. And actually, it's made me feel worse, not better. And there is a reason for that, because when you already have anxiety or other things going on in life, because life throws you loads of rubbish, layering on spiritual guilt means you're suffering twice. So when your nervous system, for example, is dysregulated, what you're doing with this spiritual bypassing is you're ladling on shame and self-criticism and the belief that you have caused this problem. So the message becomes your depression is your fault. Your panic attacks are a vibration problem. Your hard life is something you attracted. And for someone with a genuine mental illness, but not just that, like stuff going on. I've got ADHD, I've got a son with autism. I'm a single mom. I've got all this stuff going on. My life is busy. It's hectic. It's tiring. It's hard work. It's life, right? Life is like that. We have loads of stuff thrown at us. Family members die, pets die. stuff happens and it's not nice. Um, and when we're told that it's because we're not in the right vibration, it's not really helpful at all. It's just another way of bringing in toxic positivity into your life. Because these things really happen. I had a dad, I grew up with a dad who was an alcoholic. He was abusive. I witnessed domestic violence and he killed himself when I was 25, and all of the stuff that happened to me around that. And yes, I do buy into the whole Buddhist principle of how we view things, and this our suffering. The second dart is the extra stuff we ladle on. But that doesn't mean we don't suffer, because the whole point of what Buddha said is everybody suffers. And if you eventually get to become a Buddha, you maybe have raised above the suffering. But, even in Buddhism, he doesn't sort of say, well, sit there and think positively and all of a sudden you're going to become a Buddha. Because that's not how the world works. It's not how it happens. Because the thing that the spiritual world leaves out is there's a vital difference between personal consciousness and collective reality. So what does this mean? So you can be deeply spiritual and still face systemic issues, biological realities, illness, loss, grief, discrimination. All of these. You see people who are living in war-torn countries. Are we going to say, oh, well, it's your fault, you manifested it. You weren't in a high enough vibration. It's nonsense. That's what they've experienced, and it's a real life thing. And depression and anxiety are often physiological, and it's not to do with a lack of faith or alignment. They are real life things that are happening to us. And the grounding truth is that, and I want you to kind of really remember this, all of these spiritual leaders, people like Jesus, people like Buddha, people like Rumi, they all faced extreme suffering. And they weren't spiritual failures. It's like, so you certainly aren't. They all suffered, and they all had things that were horrific happen to them, right? It wasn't like they went around living this happy, jolly life where everything was wonderful. And it's not helpful to start thinking that what you experience in life is your fault or you're responsible for it, because I think that actually just ladles on a lot of stress into us. So what I find works for me, and this is how I teach, is from my own real mess, because I'm living a real life. I'm not on a pedestal. I'm not above you. I'm not sort of like some kind of guru that's experienced it all, and I can tell you exactly how it works if you follow steps 1, 2, and 3, and you'll be perfect, because no thing will work for anyone like that. I consider myself as being in active recovery because I still have anxiety. And there are differing things that trigger it and different things that go on, but that's the whole point. And I can teach you how to manage anxiety, how to manage stress, how to deal with life, how to make life more enjoyable, how to bring more joy into life through my practices. But I'm not going to be able to take away life from you. Life is still going to life, and stuff's going to happen. And that's the reality of life. What the work is how we can be more resilient, how we can cope a little bit better, how we can come back to center when we get pushed off, for example, the other day I was doing something really stressful, and it was something that a lot of people wouldn't find stressful. And I am well aware that because I have ADHD and I have a different response to things, and it was something that I was finding really stressful. And I haven't had a panic attack in a long time, but I felt the very early stages of a panic attack. And I was like, oh, but because I've done this work and a bit up an awareness, I was like, oh, a panic attack is happening. I need to regulate my nervous system. And I was able to stop it before it actually took hold. And that's the work, right? You may still experience situations that make you feel stressed, that trigger you, that are difficult to deal with. But can you not ladle on the extra shit in the second dart that doesn't need to be there? Because the issue itself is enough to deal with. We don't need to deal with the mental stories that we create around it, the shame, the blame, the self-criticism. That's what we don't need. And that's what I can help you with. And that's how I teach, and that's what I believe in. So, real Buddhist wisdom isn't about transcending suffering. Well, I mean, it is. Like, ultimately, one day we will transcend suffering when we're released from our physical form, right? That's the point. When we're released from our physical form, we transcend suffering. But when we're in a physical form and we're a human being, we will experience suffering. And it's about how you meet it. So it's about compassion for yourself in the middle of the hard things. And I have told this story loads of times before, but I feel the urge to tell it again. There is a Buddhist parable of a woman whose child dies, and she goes to the Buddha and she begs the Buddha to bring her child back to life. And he says yes. And I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's a sunflower seed. He says, if you can bring me a sunflower seed from the house that has experienced no loss. And she literally goes and searches for years, knocks on every door she can find. She comes back to the Buddha and eventually she says, I get it. There is no house that hasn't experienced loss. And it's that point to remember that actually you're not unique when you experience loss and we're not trying to transcend above that experience because that's a human experience. What we're trying to do is find our center within that. So that's kind of how I see it and how I view it. So if you feel like you're failing because life is hard, then it's time to fire the spiritual judge living in your head. Because true consciousness isn't about being a perfect person living a perfect life. It's about the compassion you show yourself while living a difficult one. And the real practice is not performing healing, it's actually living it, messy and imperfect and human. And it's why I teach this way, not from theory, but from lived experience and from active recovery, from the reality that healing is non-linear and nobody is doing it perfectly. So one of the things you can do just to allow yourself to kind of really feel this is place a hand on your heart. Feel the warmth of your hand. Take a slow breath in and out. And take another breath. And as you exhale, you can whisper to yourself, I'm allowed to be human. And just notice what shifts in your body even slightly when you give yourself that permission. Like just giving yourself permission, I'm allowed to be human and have a human experience. So just allow yourself to feel that. Great. So if this video resonated with you, please like and subscribe because it helps me reach more people who need to hear this message. And if you want to go deeper into nervous system regulation, somatic healing, and what real recovery actually looks like without the spiritual guilt, then I have a free community on School called the Somatic Reset Lab, and I'd love for you to join us. I will drop the link in the description, and come and see us all and connect. And I'll see you soon.